Good morning. This is the Blainsworld podcast where conversations are worth hearing and listening to. Each week, we speak to different people in different fields throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest today, and she is Elaine Robinson Beattie, who's a global leadership strategist, international speaker, author, and executive coach, being my guest today. Elaine, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, and this is Elaine waving from Atlanta. Is that where you are now?
From Atlanta.
Okay, but used to be in the Asheville area. And she mentioned that she has all this experience in leadership. She also, her work is taken her course in the United States, Canada, India, and Paris, France, helping organizations build strong leadership pipelines that last. She is the creator of the Lead Well, Lead Wise Leadership Development Program and the author of Sis, You Earned It, and also author of Chasing 100. And so the first question I ask you, Elaine, when I meet somebody online, is as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in New York City.
Okay, me too. I was born in New York City. How long were you in New York City?
Oh gosh, I mean, I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then we moved to Queens, and then I basically grew up on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Okay, so I grew up in New York City.
Yeah, till I was 18.
To Long Island. And so you grew up there, and as a little girl growing up in New York, did you always know you want to be this leadership guru?
No, I did not. But you know what? I played sports. And, I just kept ending up in leadership positions. And so I think I was getting a little preview about what was to come next.
What sports did you play?
I ran track, I played basketball, I played volleyball and softball.
Because you were actually kind of almost ahead of the time, right? At that time when you were a kid, women were, I guess, starting to get involved in sports or becoming prominent in sports, but it wasn't almost like a career path for women. Was that kind of case as a kid? Were there lots of other women?
Thank you for asking that question and bringing that up. I went to a Catholic school, and our coach was Brother Sheehy. Shout out to Brother Sheehy and all my friends at Loyola and St. Ignatius Loyola. And we were taught how to play sports. He knew we didn't know jack about sports, but he knew that he could teach us. And it was so amazing. And we learned so much. Like, we didn't know how to dribble, and we didn't know anything about, volleyball and pitching. And oh my gosh, I was the worst catcher ever, but I could run. I could bat and I could run. So they kept me on the team. But he was persistent, and he taught us how to practice and drills and practice and drills. And we got very good. And what people didn't know, I went from my grammar school right around the corner to my high school, is that the team that I played with in grammar school, we ended up playing together in high school. So people could not beat us. They thought we were some little chump team, but they didn't know that we had played together for years.
You played sports. Did you go on to continue playing sports?
I did not play when I got to college. So things kind of ended there. I thought I was going to play tennis, but I just was really focused on my schoolwork. So I kind of let go of all the athletic sides of me.
Except I'm thinking out loud, you can make a comeback now, because they have now, I've always seen it, the programs for elder, I don't want to say seniors or older folks, but they have, the Senior Olympics or something like that. You can make a comeback. What do you think?
Look, my girlfriend, Marsha Rafiq, she's my mentor. Okay. Marsha won the Senior Olympics. She was a swimmer.
Wow.
Okay. She took lessons. She practiced. She got in the pool, and she ended up with a gold medal. So anything's possible. Yeah. And Marsha's like 12 years older than me. So, and we're not going to reveal our age, because women don't do that in public.
Well, no, I'm thinking for 47, you're looking, marvelous, I think. So
keep talking, Blaine. Keep talking.
But this had a great story. So I'll send this to her as well. But that is a great story. And is she still athletic?
You know what? She just got back in the pool. Now, I have to tell you, she did that about 4 or 5 years ago. And then she got involved in volunteering and things like that. But she just started back swimming again. And she told me last week, Elaine, I swam the whole length of the pool. So lesson learned. We can learn, we can practice, we can get good at it. And then, there's that muscle memory and it comes right back to us.
Great story. So update me then. So you stopped competing athletically in college. What did you study as an undergraduate?
So I thought I was going to be a nurse, went to school, and that was rough stuff. In fact, my anatomy teacher said, you really need to give up. And I was so hurt, right? Because I'm an athlete, right? Like, you don't tell me that. Like, we win, we keep persisting. But the fact of the matter is he was saying words in in class, and I couldn't even find them in the textbook, right? Like, I could not phonetically spell them. So
in retrospect, he did you a big favor, though.
He did me a big favor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
my mother. I called my mom and dad and said I had to come home and I had to change my major, and she switched to business. So there you go.
That was probably traumatic though at the time, that to be told you can't do something. So you then switched as an undergraduate to business, and you found that was your niche?
I found that was my niche. I mean, it was so much easier. It was natural. I didn't have to work as hard. It was common sense. I loved it. I would show up to class all, glassy eyed and, just ready to go. And so it was a much better fit.
Were you folks in business?
Actually, yes. My mom actually was a entrepreneur for 47 years. She just died in 2024. Gosh, I can't even believe that. 2024. She was 89 years old, and she had owned her own business for 47 years on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And my dad was an entrepreneur too. He actually was in the area of food, and he was the director of housing and dining for NYU, and told NYU that he was going to leave to start his own business. And they said, no, you can't leave us. How about if we give you our account? Can you imagine? In the 70s, my dad ended up with $1 million account just like that because of relationship.
And we'll talk about that, but that's a really good point about relationships, And one of the things I always admire about you, that you're so big into that and maintaining these relationships. We'll go back to your mom. So what was her business?
My mom had an infant and toddler preschool called the House of Little People.
Okay, love the title. Did you help out in that at all?
I did. Of course, when she launched it, we were all there, just helping her getting it ready. But I actually opened up our second location, and that was awesome. My dad and my brother showed up. I was in the hotel business for 21 years, and they showed up at my hotel one day, and they said, "We need to talk to you." And I was like, "About what?" They were all serious, and they said, "Well, we need you to come work for the family. It's time that you come back to the family." So I told them that they'd have to pay me. I was getting paid really well, and they did pretty good. Anyway, yeah, so they wanted me to bring the skills that I had learned in the hospitality industry to the business. And my parents were professionals, so they knew what to do. They were both really well-versed in operations and SOPs and things like that, and managed many people, right? So they were really good at that. But they just wanted me to bring my gifts and talents and skills, so that's what I did.
So that was quite a switch, I guess. So you went to college, and then after college, you went into the hotel industry?
Yes.
And what did you do in that era?
So like a lot of students, right, you think you want to do one thing, and then you don't know what you're going to do. So when I made the switch from nursing, my intention was always to be a hospital administrator, but I wanted to do it with a medical background. When that didn't work, I still decided to be a hospital administrator. I was lucky enough to do my internship at Boston City Hospital, which is a trauma 1 center. But after I did that, I realized I did not like the environment. I just didn't like the culture. It just didn't feel good. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I came home, worked for my mom at the daycare center. And my dad, kept saying, you really need to, find something. What was happening is I was being made offers from companies like Gillette, these major companies, but they wanted me to start as a secretary. And I wasn't going to do that. That was not the vision. And so I kept saying no. Well, long story short, I ended up interviewing with a friend of my dad's. He went to Tuskegee, and this was a classmate of his, Howard Mills, who's no longer with us, was the meeting planner for the National Urban League.
Okay.
And he had connections with all of the major hotel companies. He called up his friends and he says, I have this woman. After talking to me, he said, Elaine, you'd be perfect for the hotel business. Sheraton flew me up and interviewed me on the spot, 6 interviews all day long. And they said, we want you to be a general manager. We want you to be a general management trainee. And guess what? You could become a general manager in 10 years. And guess what, Blaine? I believed him. So I accepted the job. I ended up transferring to Miami, and I started out as a management trainee. And that set my career up and running for 21 years. I moved 12 times in 21 years, across the country, Canada. It was just an awesome, awesome career.
So you were running properties, so is that right? You were managers of properties?
Right. So I started as a management trainee to learn how to be a manager and a leader. And then, yes, as the career goes, you move from property to property management, management position. And so my focus area was the rooms division. So I was in charge of those areas when you first come in, like, reservations, front desk, housekeeping, all those areas. And so I worked small hotels, large hotels, like the one in New York where my brother and father came. That was a beautiful small boutique hotel on Park Avenue. It was called the Sheraton Park Avenue. But the hotel I started at was a resort property. When I went to Canada, it was a large convention property. Downtown Toronto was amazing. I worked at the Sheraton PGA, right? The PGA. Yes, I was there. So I had the opportunity to work certain hotels, and I ended up becoming a general manager at a beautiful all suites property, a Sheraton all suites property.
It's funny, your story reminds me of me as a kid. I did an internship once for IBM. You remember, and I was stayed with them because the acronym was I've been moved. Your experience, 12 properties in 21 years, kind of says that, in the hotel industry, you want to get ahead, you got to move around, I guess, a little bit. So you did that for a bunch of years, 21 years. What got you out of the hotel industry? That's when you went with your mom?
No, that's when I went out on my own. What got me out of the hotel industry was recognizing and realizing that there were some downfalls to the industry. I loved what I did. I loved managing people. I loved developing people. I loved meeting my guests. But I had a very hard time managing burnout, managing my lifestyle. And, because I was single, there was no reason to go home because I was getting all my needs met at work.
Right.
And so I kept saying to myself, Elaine, you've got to find a better way to balance this. And so toward the end, I ended up hiring an executive coach. And I realized how impactful she was for me, and how she was able to help me hold my boundaries, how she was able to help me yet strategize in a very healthy way, where I could, again, be there for other people. Because at this point, I was director of human resources for an opening hotel. I opened the first Black-owned hotel on Miami Beach. That's a whole story. But I really needed to be there for all the other leaders. And I needed to make sure, though, that I could also take care of myself. And so I hired a coach. And then I said to her, do you think I could become a coach? And she said, absolutely. With your background, operations, human resources, great. So that's what I did.
if I can jump in, I have to ask you for another shout out. Is the coach still around? What, can we mention her?
Yes, she
Can we
is.
mention her?
Wait, let me, oh my gosh,
Elaine?
now you're asking me on the spot.
Hold on a
It's gonna
second.
come.
Back again. This is Blaine Greenfield with Blainsworld podcast. We're speaking with Elaine Robinson Beattie about her experiences in terms of getting to where she is now. But we were talking about her experiences working with an executive coach. And Elaine, do you remember the name of that woman?
I could never forget my coach, my first coach, Joyce Reynolds. She was a business coach, and I had never heard of a business coach. Now, come to find out, Blaine, and you would probably understand this, men had business coaches for years, but we women didn't know about that. But I had a girlfriend who told me she had a coach, and it was Joyce, and Joyce changed my life.
And by the way, if Joyce is listening, or hopefully we'll get a copy of this tape to her. Thank you, Joyce.
Yes, yes, Joyce, look what I've become. You did it. You did it.
And if it weren't for her, we wouldn't be talking today. So
absolutely,
you speak cool stories. So you speak to a coach and points out the value of coaching. And coaching can make a difference in people's lives. And so she helped turn your life around. How so? Where to go from that experience to leaving a field you were very successful in? Big shift at the time.
Big shift, but I had been working my way to that and had not realized, because all along, Blaine, as a leader, I realized how important it was to mentor other younger leaders. One, because it really didn't happen for me. And then I realized how important it was, and I started seeking them out. And then I did have mentors. And then I realized it made the difference for people, right? Mentoring, being very involved with the people that were reporting to me that I was responsible for. And so, yeah, I just really believe in making sure that, people are developed, that they're given the opportunities to open doors for people. So, yeah, that's really what I'm all about. What I was all
really good advice. Let me ask you this question. If anybody's listening, woman or guy, how do you go about finding a mentor?
So several different ways. Today, because of, social media and access to technology, we can literally be mentored in a book or on a podcast. But, we have friends, and you can look at your industry and see who the leaders are in that industry and start following them. And then there might be, maybe you can't get to them, but you can get to people that have studied under them, right? So, for instance, I had the pleasure of meeting the Les Brown. Like, he is a major motivational speaker. Love Les Brown. I was totally inspired. I said, oh, I want to be a speaker. And that's actually what got me to think about speaker. Well, right now I am in a coaching program that focuses on storytelling. And my coach was trained by Les Brown, Andy Henriquez.
Is Les Brown still around?
He is. I was just in a conference with him in November. We were in Miami, and he blessed us with his presence. Now, he's about 82-ish or somewhere, and slowing down, but it's because Andy was his mentee. He decided to accept the invitation. We were so blessed by his presence. So shout out to Mr. Les Brown. Thank you.
Since you mentioned it, I have to do a quick story, a Les Brown story. I've never met him, but I seen him speak. I think I read he wrote a book, or he's written several books.
Many books, yes.
And so, real quick, you probably know the story. He tells the story. I still remember it to this day. I can't believe it. He was a politician at one time too, right? He was a politician. He was in state legislator or somewhere way back when he was a younger guy. And I'm sure this story, he tells the story, he and his buddy are talking, and they're talking to support each person's legislation. So Les Brown was sponsoring a piece of legislation. The buddy would support it. The buddy would then support Les Brown's. So Les Brown votes for his piece of legislation. His buddy gets up and doesn't vote for Les Brown's piece of legislation. Les Brown, he'll tell him and mention some of the tape, and he's furious. And Les Brown said, "How come you didn't vote for me? You said you would." The guy says, "I lied," And Les Brown was so furious, But I said that one Les Brown story. I love this book tape. If he's listening, tell him as a fan. So it made a difference in my life. But wow, so you got to meet Les Brown. But I love the story.
Yes.
I love the story you told, though. And you can find people or can seek them out and be in touch with them. And it's so funny because it's going to segue into something else I'll ask you about in a second, and that's your books and your writing. But go from, you were in the hotel industry, you met this woman who made an impact with you as a coach. So what happened then? You then just decided one morning you're going to start your own business?
No, Blaine, I got a call from my mentor at the time, Marsha Rafiq. Shout out to Marsha. She's here in Atlanta, and it's just amazing how our lives have come together. I met her at a conference called the National Coalition of Black Meeting Planners. And this was early on at the beginning of the launch of this important organization. And it was designed to bring people of color together so that we could be educated and trained and, just share resources. Well, I didn't have a mentor at the time, but when I saw her, oh my gosh, it was like love at first sight. So Marsha and I she was my mentor. She was a general manager. So I could look in her face. She was a Black woman. I could look in her face and see what it looked like. Because up until then, general managers were all white men for the most part. A couple of maybe white women. So as the years went on, we became colleagues. We became friends. I now call her my big sister. This is over 40 years. This is the same woman who was swimming, right? The swimmer. Here's the thing. Marsha calls me up one day and says, "Elaine, I'm okay. And I'm like, "You're not okay. Like, what's wrong?" What is wrong? Well, I just wanted to call and tell you that I just had a quadruple bypass. And I'm thinking, no, I am not going out like this. So she had a quadruple bypass. There were other colleagues of mine who were getting divorced. They were getting diabetes. Like, people's health, their physical health was dropping. Their emotional health was dropping. Their relational health, things were just falling apart. And I thought, how can I help people in a way? First of all, how can I save myself? And then how can I help others? How can I help others not to do this? Because the business that we're in, the hospitality business, is amazing. Oh, it is one of the best industries ever. You get to meet people. You get to create amazing experiences for people. And that's why I wanted to be a general manager, so that I could create experiences for my staff as well as for the customers. And I did that. And it was so much fun. But here's the thing. It comes at a cost.
I was going to say that.
And I had to learn, and it took me, I was 15 years in before I really got, the message. And I had to go down a slippery slope. Like, I had to hit rock bottom. Most of us have to hit rock bottom. Yeah. Burned out, too much partying, too much other stuff, and it got to me, right? It got to me. And then we had good friends and was able to get myself back on, a road that was healthy, but it was hard to stay on it. And so that's where the coach came in, and my therapist and good friends. I mean, you have to have a whole group of people to keep you together when you're in leadership. And I don't think people realize that. Leaders need a lot of support. And I wanted to be part of that support team.
Well, it's so great you said that, because I sort of believe in the same thing too. And one of the things you've done, and I'm very impressed with, is that you've created your own team. In other words, so rather than just, you mentioned this one woman as your coach, but you had a whole bunch of other people out there, and you create this team rather than just you doing it yourself, So go then from there, transition to where you then left the industry and went on your own.
Yeah, so I guess I just had the entrepreneurial bug just like everybody else, and I just felt compelled. I just felt like the time was right. I had been on this amazing team. We opened it, as I said, the first Black-owned hotel, the the Crown Plaza, the Royal Palm Crown Plaza in Miami. And we did it. We had 400 rooms, 220 employees. We had 25 languages spoken. I mean, if you want to know what diversity looked like, we showed you, right? As Director of Human Resources, I did orientation in 3 languages, in French, Spanish, and English. And it was a blast. It was an absolute blast. And so after I got the hotel open and I got everybody stable, I felt it was time to move on. And so I then left the business, retooled as a coach. Self-care coach was my focus at the time, and then had this vision of creating a leadership, if you would, retreat and spa where I could coach people, give them a place of rest and Sabbath, and then help them to go back, re-entry, if you would, in a healthy way. And guess what? I felt like that place was Asheville, North Carolina. And that's how I got to Asheville.
I was going to ask you, so when did you come to Asheville?
2003.
Okay. And so you then, when you were in Asheville, that was one of the things you were doing when you were here to start this program?
Well, I ventured out. I had, I was going to buy a bed and breakfast, and I must have visited and talked to about 22, as a great bed and breakfast community. And I talked to about 20 or so owners, and I had a deal on the table. It fell through, and it really broke my heart because it was really the one that I wanted. And the woman really didn't want to sell it to me for all kinds of reasons. And that's a whole nother story. But I ended up having to redo my plan. So I kind of drifted around Asheville for a moment because that was what I was going to do. So I didn't have a plan B.
By the way, we should use that as an aside to talk about another experience I had in Asheville, and we had to share the experience not at the same time, but around that time you also got involved in Leadership Asheville?
Yes, and as I was wandering around, thank God, I ran into some people, and I was invited to be a columnist for the Asheville Citizen-Times. And then I was invited to be a speaker, a presenter for Leadership Asheville. And then the next year I was invited to be a participant in Leadership Asheville.
And we give a shout out to Leadership Asheville. So this is another leadership experience you recommend people to participate in?
Without question. In every city, in any city that you're in, become part of that program.
Okay, and they have Leadership Asheville, Leadership Atlanta. They have them throughout the country.
Leadership Henry County. I'm in Henry County. Leadership Henry County. Absolutely. You can find them everywhere. And it's such a great way to become familiar with, the local government, with the who's who in leadership, the major corporations, companies, businesses, and to just build relationships that will last you a lifetime. In fact, I look on LinkedIn and I see people doing things, and I just reconnected with Amanda Edwards. I was congratulating her because she became your new county chairwoman, right? Yeah. So I was just saying, yay, Amanda. And then I said, we haven't talked in so long. Do you know it's been since I left Asheville, which is 2016?
But one of the cool things you're doing, and I encourage other people to think about this, is to keep in touch, either through LinkedIn or other ways. Even how I'm not close friends with your husband, but it's interesting. He and I have been in touch for maybe 10 years, every so often, but it's kind of cool to maintain that relationship, and so you've done that. So Leadership Asheville, you did it. Talk about your business then in Asheville. So what were you doing in Asheville in terms of getting your business where you are now?
Well, Asheville is famous for this. We do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But you do what you have to do to make it work. But I worked for Mountain BizWorks for years and love that. Yeah. So I have so many businesses that I've been a part of launching. In fact, oh my gosh, what's the name of it? It's the It's the bus. It's the mystery bus. Oh, what's it called?
Zoom tours.
Oh, Zoom. Yes, that was born in my classroom, right in my little group.
God bless. Okay,
Yeah, shout out to them. But yeah, so I did that. I actually worked and taught, and I loved it for the hospitality department at AB Tech. I did that for several years and actually was the chair of the business department at AB Tech. But the thing that I think I'm most proud of was launching and establishing a BIPA, Asheville Buncombe Institute of Parity Achievement. Dr. Charles Blair was the doctor for the county, and he was actually dying. And at the same time, we got a grant, and it was to take this little small nonprofit and really establish it. And I was actually the first full-time executive director. And my job, quite frankly, was to get a BIP on the map. And I did that. I did as best I could to let people know who we were. And we were an organization that was set out to connect the people of color of Buncombe County to the resources, help people get health access, creating health equity. And there were so many people that we partnered with. I mean, of course, Mission Hospital, but the YMCA, the YWCA. I mean, I could go on, and the American Cancer Society. And I just spoke to Molly. Shout out Molly. Just so many people. And I am proud to say that BIPA is doing well. They're still, still serving hundreds, thousands of people. My assistant took over. She was more than capable when I left and has done 10 times the things that I did when I was there. So very proud of the work.
You should be. So how did we lose you from Asheville a couple of years ago, a bunch of years ago now, to Atlanta? What happened?
Well, as I was doing what I did at a BIPA, in walks this man, as you all know him, right? Dr. Blues, Chuck Beattie. And he walked right into where I was working. And now here's the thing. In all my years, I have met many a man, okay? Very wealthy, to-do, gorgeous, man, right? And I never blinked an eye, never, ever, right? Like Miss Professional here. And somehow or another, I don't know, the Spirit of the Lord fell on me. And he kept coming, he kept visiting our office. And I don't know, one day he said something, and he said something like, he was talking to some guys, and he said, well, if I'm going to get married again, God's going to have to show her to me. And Blaine, you've been in a deli. You've been in a New York deli, right?
Yeah.
When they call your number 22, it was like my number was called. I stood up and I said, I'm single.
So I didn't know this. So he was living in Atlanta at the time?
No, we met in Asheville.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we met in Asheville. He literally walked into a BIPA, this place that I was telling you about, this organization. He walked into my workplace looking for help for health access, right? So he had diabetes. He has diabetes, and we had a program for Black men who had diabetes, and it was perfect. We just enrolled him, and and again, he kept coming, and he was, helpful to my ladies in the office because he had those skills around technology. And so he was helping us in the office, and one thing led to another. Next thing I know, we were dating. Next thing I know, we were getting married. We met in 2010, we got married in 2012. And then he talked about becoming a minister.
Right.
And he felt like he wanted to go to seminary. And so we came here to Atlanta so that he could attend Emory. Yeah.
And just listen to the story, because I remember at the time I was following it through him. It was just so amazing because he's such a talented musician, and all of a sudden to become a minister and to do this full time. And it's a great, great story. So I have to ask you two other things before I let you go. But in the midst of all this stuff, also, you wrote a book. And talk a little bit about that process. And you have the book in front of you, I think. If you
I do. Thank you, sis. You
yeah.
earned it. And it really does encompass a lot of what I was just talking about. I really believe that it's not a secret on how to get to the C-suite. And so I have a passion and a vision to get as many women and women of color into the C-suite, managing, leading organizations so that we can create opportunities for all people.
So talk about the book then. How long did it take you to write?
Oh my gosh, years. It doesn't everybody say that, because, it was going to be this, it was going to be that, it was going to be a devotional, it was going to be, all my stories. And then, I got some assistance and we kind of pared it down, but it finally now is really a roadmap of what I think are the keys to being able to increase your visibility, increase your executive presence while maintaining your health, but all of the necessary things that they have those locker room conversations and we don't get invited to. So I just thought I would just, dispel the secrets.
So if you would put the book up again, so if folks want to get that, it's available through Amazon or elsewhere?
Through Amazon, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so it tells your whole story?
It doesn't tell my whole story. No, I don't go into like a lot of personal stuff. There are stories in it, but it's really written as a business book, right? As a opportunity for those who want mentorship, right? Who want strategy, and it's really written for women, so that they can get that.
Okay.
And then, if you would, I
was going to ask you. So in your spare time, then we came out with your part of this other book, and talk about that book.
Well, and this one's special because my coach, who I told you about earlier, Andy Henriquez, had been invited to write books for years, but he decided that he would invite us, the people that he was coaching, to write alongside him. And Andy it's called Chasing 100, everybody. And Andy taught a concept about us being able to move fast and to move at a speed with other people. And so, short and sweet, you can hang out with people who are not cheering you on, who want to drag you down. And we call those like the 25s, the 35s, the 40s. Or you can hang out with people like yourself, maybe. Maybe you're at a 60 or a 75. But we want to chase 100. We want to get up there with people who will challenge us, who will help us to get to the next level. So these are stories of overcoming. They're stories of people being able to recover, build resistance. You can see how people built their resistance and just push through to success. And so it's a very inspiring book. And so I'm pleased to be in there. And my chapter is called You Are Not Them. You are not them. And that is what my mom said to me. And what she was highlighting was the fact is that, I know there's this American dream, but you are Black, you are a woman, right? And you are young, and there are different rules for you. And that might be a hard truth for some people to hear, but it was the truth. And I needed to get that because I believed I was just like everybody else. And if I worked hard and if I, got the education that I was going to get, right, moved up, and that was not the case.
Elaine, so hold that book up again so I see the author, the second one you just held up.
And, yes.
Chasing 100. If you look up under the author, Andy Henriquez.
Andy Henriquez, yes.
That's great. Henriquez. And so I have to ask you one other question before I let you go. And that is, so you've done all this stuff in the last bunch of years. 5 years from now, where will you be?
Traveling the world, speaking on world stages, and inspiring, hopefully encouraging and teaching, right? Not just inspiring, but teaching women and men across the world who believe in inclusion, who believe in uh, learning as a lifelong thing about how to lead well and lead wise. And I say that so that you can live wholeheartedly. See, I think it's important that we learn the basics of leadership and that we practice that and we hold one another accountable. But that we lead wisely, that we utilize all of the resources. Right now, we've got technology and AI, and we've got books and podcasts and each other, right? So that we can live wholeheartedly, so that we can, like, I want to do travel and, be with our family, our grandkids, our kids, our friends, that we can go to, to Colombia, to wherever we hike the highest places, right? And just live life. So yeah, so 5 years from now, I hope to be working with major corporations. I hope to be able to be speaking on world stages and having fun
And also
with my husband.
making your best will comeback, maybe, like your friend, you can tell her, I was so inspired by your friend. You talked about swimming. So maybe we'll see you on the court sometime in the future.
Possibly.
Elaine Robinson Beattie, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or follow you, either social media or other ways, website, what's the best way to keep track of what you're doing?
The best way is to follow me on LinkedIn, and it's Elaine Robinson Beattie. Elaine Robinson Beattie. Or you can find me on Facebook, Elaine Robinson Beattie, or Instagram. I'm on all the socials, and TikTok. So you can look up Lead Well, Lead Wise. TikTok is Lead Well, Lead Wise with Elaine. And I'll be coming out with some podcasts and on YouTube. So I'm trying to do like you, Blaine, grow up and be like you.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blainsworld podcast. Also, I thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and hopefully one of these days we'll even bump into each other. That'd be great. Thanks, Elaine.
Yes, we're due for a trip to Asheville for sure. Thank you, Blaine. Thank you so much.